Iran has launched a major missile strike in Iraq in response to the killing of General Soleimani. Ultimately, between 15 to 30 missiles have hit multiple sites, two sites in Iraq with United States personnel, essentially U.S. coalition forces in Iraq personnel. The attack came in two waves, each an hour apart. Apparently, there was advance notice. Apparently, they identified the weapons before they came in, so the U.S. personnel took cover. The amount of damage is not necessarily known, and the casualties, apparently there are none reported. However, again, that's not entirely known. At the very least, no casualties have been reported, to say it that way. Trump has been notified. He's supposed to be giving a message on Wednesday, meaning giving an address on Wednesday. He put out the response effectively that, right here, where's my Trump response? So, right here, President Trump did not immediately respond, and the White House eventually said he would not make an address to the nation on Tuesday. He's supposed to be making this address on Wednesday. Trump puts out a tweet saying everything is okay. We have the biggest and best military on the planet. This type of bravado type stuff. Ultimately, though, this is no longer a proxy war. These two countries are now exchanging direct fire at one another. We kill one of their statesmen, their war heroes, effectively. Millions of people, and I mean millions of people, came out to the various funerals as his body went around the country. It was a mass show of solidarity, not just in support of that person who they consider to be, again, a hero, but also against the group, the country, the rogue nation that essentially assassinated him. This response is what they consider to be a proportional response. I'm going to give you my assessment of this because it is a proportional response, but I would make the case that this is more so weakness masquerading as strength based on the things that they have to do that go beyond what they may feel in this particular moment. They're continuing to be rational actors, despite the fact that they are effectively under direct assault. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, subscribe. You can always support PayPal, Patreon, even $1 help, because this video will be instantly demonetized. Iran sends multiple missiles into bases in Iraq. Trump puts out the response. If I can find this, here we are. All is well. Missiles launched from Iran at two military bases located in Iraq. Assessment of casualties and damages taking place now. So far, so good. We have the most powerful and well-equipped military anywhere in the world by far. I will be making a statement tomorrow morning. Here's the thing. And I've been saying for the past 2 years that we have been squaring off against Iran. He had Iran in his crosshairs. I've also been saying for the last 2 years that this strategy will fail. There is no political room for Iran to maneuver in regards to acquiescing to United States demands that they essentially rip up a deal and do another deal that is worse off for them. Between war and that, you are always going to end up with war. Trump and his people believe different. The catch here is people around Trump want regime change, regardless of what Trump wants, meaning the advice that they're giving him, again, is putting him in a position right now, where we are now. Trump has crossed over a line at the point where he assassinated one of their figureheads of state. If John Kerry went into another country to visit and somebody drone bombed John Kerry, what would the United States do to the opposing nation? How would the United States act? What would the position of the population be, even if you didn't particularly like John Kerry? What will you feel about that? Despite whether or not you like John Kerry, I would imagine that you would greatly hate if somebody just drone bombed them in a particular country. I hope you get my point. They're no different. They're human beings also. They have a national identity and a national pride, just like us. And the moment that somebody is murdered, especially somebody that they consider a national treasure, yes, they, just like us, will have severe and significant feelings about that particular instance. Here's the catch, though. Regardless of what they want, meaning the public itself wants the public, the government of that country to represent them. Somebody has just killed one of our statesmen. Do something. What are you going to do to avenge the fact that he was murdered? Well, they have to do something. There's no choice. There's no leeway in that. A, they want to do something because they're angry. This was a friend. This guy was close to the Ayatollah himself. B, the public demands that action is taken in order to balance the scales in regards to this particular attack on one of their statesmen. And so what do? They respond. They send a missile attack. 15 to 30 missiles. Iran says 30. The United States says 15. Here's the catch, though. This is actually weakness masquerading as strength. Iran has far better weapons. They had far better targets. They could have attacked Saudi Arabia. They could have attacked Israel. They could have attacked the United States with a larger military force or capability. They didn't do that. They sent 15 missiles, and it's unclear on the casualty report. But at this point, nobody has been considered to be killed in this. Apparently, the missiles, whatever they were, had advance warning, all this stuff. I'm just making the point that this is not a major attack. This is somewhat of a moderate attack at two bases. Now, could they have done more? Yes. Could they have done more damage? Yes. Were there better targets? Yes. Did they take those targets? No, they did not. What does it mean to be proportional? You know, like, what's the balance? How many apples versus how many oranges? And you make the point of saying, well, that kind of depends on whether you like apples or oranges and how much you like apples and oranges. Yes, it does. It's a perspective thing. It's somewhat subjective. 15 missiles? What about 20 missiles? Is 20 missiles too far? I guess I'm making the point that they're making the case that says this is a proportional response to what is taking place. Now, don't respond to this. And they even say it. They say, don't respond to this. If you don't respond to this, we can begin to de-escalate. This is quid pro quo. You take an action, we take a proportionate response. You take an action, we take a proportionate response. If you escalate, we escalate. Back and forth, back and forth. At the point where one side de-escalates, the other side de-escalates. That's what's taking place. That's what's been taking place for the past several months. And I've been noting, I've been right on this. But they can only go so far. They don't want a war. Regardless of how they feel, the actions that they're taking here is to show strength. But it's to show it in a way that doesn't necessarily tip the scales into a justifiable response by the United States. Meaning, up to this point, Iran has been rational actors. And in the killing of this man, Soleimani, well, they have to do something for their public, but they also have to respond from the standpoint even just from a state defending its interests. And so they respond. They send 15 missiles. These 15 missiles just were at 2 military bases. Not necessarily major targets if you wanted to kind of take down the world's oil, but a moderate response. The public sees this and at the very least says, okay, the government responded. The question becomes, does the government or does the public believe this was adequate? Regardless of whether the public believes it was adequate or not, the government, in its head, has to preserve and has interests that go beyond how they feel and beyond what the public wants. And in this particular case, one of that main interest is don't provoke a war. The world, for the most part, can look at the situation and at the very least say, okay, Iran is being a rational actor. The United States is being belligerent. Don't do anything to tip the moral ground in this particular case. So we need to respond, but we can't respond in a way that would actually provoke a conflict. It doesn't matter what the public wants. In this case, the response has to be something that doesn't necessarily overtly tip the scales into the full-blown war. It's a quid pro quo, but they're walking on a tightrope. We can't go, but so far. The catch becomes, though, it may not matter. Ultimately, the fact that they responded at all may provoke a response from the United States. They may look at this and say, any response to us is intolerable, whether you injured anybody or not. Keep in mind, the attack on the embassy had no casualties. Nobody was injured in that attack from the standpoint of U.S. personnel or anything else. It was just the very act of the embassy being attacked that provoked Donald Trump to murder Soleimani. Well, what about this? This is a direct military attack on U.S. personnel. Now, whether those personnel took cover or not is somewhat almost secondary to the fact that it was a direct military attack from Iran onto U.S. personnel. Depending on what Donald Trump says tomorrow morning, all hell is going to break loose. If Donald Trump decides to take a missile assault or cruise missiles at Iran, they will respond in kind. This is a dangerous precedent. This is kind of the point that I've been making here. This is a sleepwalk into a war. Whatever Donald Trump's original intentions were, meaning this pressure campaign, but wanting to pressure, but not necessarily getting into a war, this is out of his hands. I would be shocked as shit if Donald Trump come back tomorrow and say, okay, nobody was damaged, so we're just going to brush this off. Will the people around him be saying, brush this off? Will Pompeo be saying that? Will Bolton be saying that? I know Bolton is not necessarily there anymore, but for the most part, I would imagine he won't be saying that on some kind of television network. Will Fox News be saying that? Will Rush Limbaugh be saying that? Will all the people that Trump listened to and is in his ear be saying that? Do you think those people care that Donald Trump was the initiator of all of this? This nonsensical pressure campaign that had no chance of success at all. Do you think that they're going to look back and say, well, it was Trump that got rid of the JCPOA. It was Trump that decided to do the campaign. It was Trump that decided to call the Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization. It was Trump that decided to put more military personnel in that particular part of the world. Trump decided to do those things. Trump decided to murder Soleimani. Trump decided to murder those 25 people who were there, who were under the auspices of the Iraqi army, many of which were Iraqis themselves. Trump decided all of this. But do you for once think that those talking heads, those neocons, are going to be saying, hey, look, this was a proportional response, fair enough. Fair enough. I don't get the feeling that that's going to be fair enough. I don't get the feeling that's going to be fair enough. They are in a weird spot. We can't ignore this. By the same token, we can't go too far. By the same token, the United States may look at this and say, we don't want you responding to us at all. And any response to us at all is beyond the pale, and we will respond in kind. Now, the question becomes, what does the rest of the world do? Right? Where's Europe on this? The 15 missiles, where is Europe on this? What is Russia and China? What's the perspective of those major countries? I mean, these guys were having military exercises only a few weeks ago. They weren't having that for their health. They were having that to show a projection of force to the world, specifically to the United States, who has been, at this point, a belligerent actor. It's true. We've lost the mission. This is the wrong side of history. I mean, look, it depends on what you want your world to look like, right? I want a safer, more hospitable world where countries, for the most part, work together, even if they don't entirely have the same interests. We have been taking a policy of just knocking over governments we don't particularly like and taking the perspective that we are the policemen of the world and we can tell you what you should and shouldn't do. And if you don't like us, we're going to put sanctions on you. And if we really don't like you, we're going to call you bad names. We're going to say you do bad things to your people, and we're going to knock you over when we get the opportunity to do so. We're going to put your country in violent revolutions. And then we're going to turn around and say it was all your fault missing the fact that the sanctions and everything else were in play in order to do just that. This is a horrible precedent. It is unclear what Donald Trump is going to say tomorrow. But if he says anything like what I think he's going to say, I will be shocked if Donald Trump comes out and says, fair enough. They shot their 15 missiles. They didn't do anything, fair enough. We don't know what those missiles did yet. That's the first point. The second point is if there are any casualties, the United States will respond in a sense of military force. Even if they're not casualties, the very fact that the missiles were launched at all may provoke a response. Iran's playbook here, in the sense that we got to respond, well, we can't respond in a way that provokes an attack. Almost any response will provoke some sort of action. However, they didn't have a choice but to respond. I hope you understand what I mean. This plays itself. You can't ignore what the United States did from the standpoint of Iran. No country could, for the most part, ignore it, especially if they consider themselves a major power. This went beyond just an assassination. This was on the world stage where everybody could see it, and it hit a very particular person that was instrumental in fighting back ISIS. The public knew it. He was considered a war hero. This can't be ignored. By the same token, any reaction to it provokes another reaction. Yeah. At this point, you should believe nothing that comes out. Everything should be considered with suspicion. These two countries are now at a hot conflict with one another, where they are actively either killing participants of the country, or at the very least trying to kill the participants of the other country. The United States will use information warfare just like Iran would. That means effectively just lying and giving propaganda to the public itself. The press corps is not there. So the press corps are basically just stenographers, and it's telling you what the military wants to tell you to get that particular narrative out. Did they launch 30 missiles? Maybe. Maybe not. They have every incentive in the world to lie, to get their public, again, to believe that we are responding proportionally to the killing of this particular important person. So 30 sounds better than 15. By the same token, the United States is also every incentive to lie, just to undercut the narrative, to make it seem weaker than what it was, to sow a certain discord within the population itself that believes the government might not have acted in sufficient force, commiserate with the loss that they've encountered. I am damn curious on what Trump is going to say tomorrow. But either way, right now, the United States is exchanging fire with Iran. This is no longer a proxy conflict. I'll leave it here. Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.